Good morning, Over LC Middle Schoolers. This is Mr. Woolley again, and we're working with Lesson 7 and addition and subtraction of rational numbers. We'll focus on working with some fraction and decimal types of numbers today. So we'll still use our same skills that we have with any adding of integers and subtracting of integers. Remember, adding the opposite. And of course, we'll still use some of our fraction skills we did use earlier in the year as well. All right, so here's our first question. Suppose the 7th grader's birthday is today, and she is 12 years old. How old was she 3.5 years ago? Write an equation and use a number line to model your answer. Well, the normal problem, if I'm taking away something, how old is something a few years ago, we subtract. But remember, it's a whole number minus a fractional type of situation here with this mixed number. So we borrow. The 12 drops down one number to an 11, and I create 2 over 2 as my little temporary fraction. I do that because this has a denominator of 2, so I have a denominator of 2, fill it all the way up. That's the 1 that I took away from the 12. So 2 halves minus 1 half gives me 1 half. 11 minus 3 is 8. 8.5, or I could technically do that the same way, but it's going to still get me back to this scenario. Now, on a number line, 12 minus 1, 2, 3, and then a half. So I'm halfway between the 8 and the 9, 8.5. All right, and of course that's kind of the description of how to do that again. All right, let's go ahead and find the following sum using a number line diagram. A negative 2.5 plus 5. So a negative 2.5 is between a negative 2 and negative 3. It's right here. Now I got to add 5 from there. So my starting point was at the negative 2.5. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 1. Notice how I'm still kind of staying in between numbers. 2, 3, 4, 5 full numbers. And it took me to between 2 and 3, which is 2.5. All right, let's find the following difference represented on the number line. All right, if I have to take 1 minus 2 1/4, if I try to do that just like my normal subtraction way, remember how we like add the opposite? So it's 1 plus a negative 2 1/4. But I'm trying to add 2 opposite sign numbers. Remember from our adding lessons earlier, there's 1 of positives and 2 1/4 of the negatives. There's more negatives, so I know my answer is going to be a negative answer here. So then just take your winning number, the biggest number here, 2 1/4, minus 1, and 1/4 minus nothing is just 1/4, and then 2 minus 1 is 1. So 1 1/4, but remember, there were more negatives, so it actually makes it negative 1 1/4. And if you see it in the number line, 1 minus 1, 2, then a little bit more, and there's take away 2 1/4, it takes you to a negative 1 1/4. So you can see the visual representation of that as well. So that's that number line model right there too. All right, and the following difference represented on the number line. Negative 5.5 minus a negative 8. Well, I'm going to add the opposite here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that to a plus, and opposite negative 8 is a positive 8. So negative 5.5 plus 8. There's that many negatives, there's that many positives, there's more positives, so I know I'm going to have a positive answer here. So just take your winning number, the 8, 8 minus 5.5. And we borrow from the 8 and then make that a 7 and 2 over 2 because I can't do no fraction minus 1/2. So I create the temporary fraction here. 2 halves minus 1/2 gives you 1/2. 7 minus 5 is 2. 2.5. Can I prove this on a number line too? Here's my negative 5.5, and I have to add 8 to that. So I will make sure I'm staying in between the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm at between the 2 and the 3, 2.5. All right, same kind of concept. They give us a bunch of problems to practice with here. The negative plus the positive, well, it's going to be a negative answer because there's more of these than there are those. So just take your 6, because it's the biggest number technically. And 6 minus 5 1/4, you got to borrow again, drop down to a 5, and you get 4/4. Remember, I chose 4 as a denominator because that already had a 4, and I fill it all the way up. So now I get 4/4 minus 1/4 gives me 3/4, and 5 minus 5 is nothing, so that's it. But remember, we decided it's going to be a negative answer right at the start of the problem, so negative 3/4. We have a number line that can kind of prove that. Turn it to adding the opposite, turn it to plus a positive 0.9, and of course you're just adding 2 positive numbers together. Of course it's going to be positive. 7 plus 0.9 is just 7.9. And then here we got this little dilemma. We got 1 decimal, 1 fraction. Well, I know half is a 0.5, so I'm just going to convert it to a decimal. I could have made this 2.5, but we'll just keep it with decimals. And adding here I have a positive and a negative. There's more positives than there are negatives, so I know it's going to be a positive answer. And that plus that really turns it into a subtraction problem. And I get a 2. And here I have a negative number plus a positive number. Well, there's only a very small amount of negatives and a bunch of positives here. There's 4 full positives. So it's going to be a positive answer. Take your winning number, which is the 4, and minus that losing number, which is the 1/4. And we had to borrow again, drop it down to 3, and I chose fourths because that's already in fourths. So 3 and 4/4 minus 1/4. I can subtract that and I get 3/4, and I get 3 and 3/4. And remember, it was going to be a positive answer, and I can see that on the number line as well. All right, one more of these types of basic problems. Now 1/2 minus -3, I'm going to turn it to adding the opposite. 1/2 plus 3, well, they're both positive, so of course it's going to be a positive answer. And 1/2 plus 3 is 3.5. You see the number line as well. All right, some word problems. How do I solve these kind of problems? Well, Samantha owes her father $7. She just got paid $5.50 for babysitting. She gives that money to her dad. How much will she still owe him? Now, our answer is going to be negative because they said she still owes him money. So we know it's going to be negative right away. You have a -7 plus $5.50. So there's definitely more negatives than there are positives. Now, we know it's going to be a negative answer, so I take my bigger number, the 7, and take away the $5.50. That leaves you with $1.50. But remember, it is going to be a negative $1.50, so she'll still owe him $1.50. B, at the start of a trip, a car's gas tank contains 12 gallons of gasoline. During the trip, the car consumes 10 1/8 gallons of gasoline. How much gasoline is left in the tank? So we had 12, then we actually use 10 1/8. We could turn it adding the opposite, but then it's going to take us right back to a subtraction problem again. And in this scenario, I got to borrow again because there's no fraction trying to take away 1/8. So I create a fraction. Borrow from the 12, make it an 11. The one I created was 8/8. Right? I chose 8 for denominator because that already had an 8 for denominator. So 8/8 minus 1/8 gives you 7/8. 11 minus 10 is 1. You have 1 and 7/8 left. We have a number line there that can demonstrate and prove that as well. Lastly, we have a fish that was swimming 3.5 feet below the water surface at 7 a.m. 4 hours later, the fish was at a depth that's 5 1/4 feet below where it was at 7 a.m. What rational number represents the position of the fish with respect to the water surface at 11 a.m.? Well, the fish was already 3.5 feet below the water surface, so -3.5. And then it goes down deeper because it's starting to get warmer out during the day, so the fish get down in the cooler water as the day goes on. So now it goes down, so we subtract 5 1/4. Now I'll turn it to adding the opposite. I have a -3.5 plus the opposite of 5 1/4 is -5 1/4. So it keeps going down further. So I know for sure this is going to be a negative answer at this point. So at that point, we got a little bit of fraction work here. So I saved this kind of to think out with you guys. The common denominator scenario. All right, I have 2's and I got 4's. Common denominator is going to be a 4. So really, I have -3.5. But I'm not going to keep it as -3.5. I'm going to make that -3 and 2/4. All right, get the equivalent fractions there, something we worked on earlier in the year. Plus, and in this scenario here, I get -5 and 1/4. Okay, now add these together. I get 2/4 and 1/4. That'll give me a grand total of 3/4. And a -3 and a -5 gives me a -8 and 3/4. So -8 and 3/4 feet below sea level there. All right, now you're going to see, these all be in Schoology as well, but on page 43, there's 6 problems. These 6 problems are going to be in Schoology for you to practice on. All right, maybe you want to use a number line to kind of help you. Otherwise, you can kind of do some of the work like I've been doing those last few word problems here. Use some of the skills we got. And I know fractions can be a little tougher, but you're going to have to do it with pencil and paper to help you out a little bit. Use your calculator a little bit to help you maybe on some of the decimal problems. So good luck and give that a practice in Schoology.